welcome to Misteyre Creations. I'm your host AJ, and today is part 2 of the Friends of Pando episode. Please enjoy. Speaking of lessons, have you learned anything new from your research lately?
Yeah, we just released our 2023 year-end review. And so you kind of asked about this earlier, but I didn't want to sound boorish with all the organizational administrative stuff. You know, if I'm sitting there, one of your listeners, I'm listening to the podcast, like, oh yeah, I want to hear all about Friends of Pando administration work. Um, First of all, we have a multiple longitudinal monitoring programs. So the first program that we instantiated was recreational monitoring. And this year we saw about the same number of people hike Pando, around 1,700 and some change, slightly down from last year. But what we're really excited about is this year, so longitudinal meaning we're doing these programs year over year. We have fence repair and fortification. We did 4 projects to repair fencing, and that keeps the deer out. It controls wildlife, right? Deer and elk that'll go in and mow down the tree, right? And so we did 4 major fence repair and restoration efforts this year. We did 3 the year before, and we're talking about whole sections of fence. It's just open season, right? For the deer, they could just run right in. In addition to that, we did some preliminary soil macronutrient studies in Pando. And while it's on a very small scale, we identified different sections of the tree where we would like to develop a snapshot of the macronutrients. That's the nitrogen, the calcium, the copper, the boron, all the things that, when you go to the store and you're buying some potting soil, you want to look at that for the plant in question. So we did soil studies in Pando, and we're excited to see that. And in the soil layers, we collected the soil samples at about 6 inches or about 15 centimeters below ground, give or take, that we see really high calcium concentrations. And soil, most people agree that soil can build up about 1 inch every 1,000 years. That's a very conservative estimate, 1 inch every 1,000 years. There's other factors with Pando, there's landslides and things, but if you take that assumption, 6,000 years of soil buildup in Pando, we see really high calcium concentrations in the macronutrient profile. And why that's important is that calcium buildup in the soil, Pando needs calcium to form cell walls. It builds up in the bodies of the tree. It builds up in the leaves of the tree. Then that falls. It gets decayed and broken back down into mineral forms. But calcium is a natural sort of buffer to aluminum, the atomic aluminum in the soil. And why this is important is that aluminum becomes toxic to aspen trees, especially toxic to all trees at a certain pH level. And so we found high calcium concentrations in a very, very small subset of the tree. But what that seems to indicate across the tree's expanse is that we kind of have this calcium store that would naturally retard the buildup of aluminum that could poison the tree at the subhorizon level, or the soil level. I shouldn't say subhorizon, that's a technical term, at beneath the tree in the soil. And so we're really excited about that, and we want to scale that up. In 2024, we're going to go back to those same places and to validate this finding, because it tells us about the long-term potential health of the tree. We're going to do aluminum metal studies, and we're going to look at some other heavy metals in the soil in those plots, but also in plots in different parts of the tree where we see more conifer, because conifer can signal a shift in the aluminum calcium relationship in the soil. So we're really excited about that, even though it's on a really small scale. Nobody has done or made these things publicly available. We're an open science organization. We release all of our data out to encourage other researchers who can study the tree remotely and can begin to profile this tree in a whole different way, because we make those things freely available. In addition to this, we now have longitudinal wildlife monitoring in the tree, Alan. And before we had wildlife studies, but this tells us about the predator environment. We've been doing field observations on that based on we find bear sign or big cat sign, or we see other animals, physically see it. Now we have arrays of wildlife cameras that are set up throughout the tree. And indeed, working with Utah Department of Wildlife Resources, they collared some deer and elk in and around Pando's landmass, but working with Fish Lake National Forest, we now have these wildlife array cams. And so not only are we learning about deer and elk in Pando's landmass, but we're picking up predators. We found bats, we're finding hummingbirds. So we're beginning to develop this more holistic picture of the tree in terms of wildlife and in terms of the protections that we need to sustain or put in place to take care of Pando. And for the first time in Pando's history, we have year-round wildlife monitoring capacity. We never had that. We had studies here and there. Some scientists sit on their data. It's kind of like their currency, and they didn't release that data. Now we have ongoing longitudinal wildlife studies in the tree, and we work with the Forest Service and other land agencies and scientists to release that. So we'll start building a history of the wildlife in the tree so we understand, are the mitigating factors, the protections we're putting in place, are they effective? Do we need to do more? Could we do less? So we're really excited about that. The last thing that we did is in 2023, we did bioacoustic studies. And so, you know, people don't think of it, and a lot of folks would know, but Pando is its land, its homeland is on the Pacific Flyway. All the birds and butterflies and waterfowl that are traveling between like Mexico all the way to like British Columbia, right? And it's right on that flyway. And so we don't understand a lot about birds in Pando, but what's interesting is that birds can carry diseases from other places into new environments. And so we want to understand bird life differently. We want to understand birds as birds can tell us about Pando's habitat and how it changes over time. And so we've started these bioacoustic studies. Of course, it would also tell us about predators if we hear a mountain lion or a fox. But in addition to that, we did some preliminary bat studies, and we're going to bring bat monitoring online in Pando in 2024, set up monitoring stations for that because bats obviously eat insects. They'll give us cues about the insect environment in the Pando tree, and of course, just taking care of the bats and the birds. So the bird studies can tell us about the habitat. It could give us a sort of advance warning if we're seeing, you know, any aspen related diseases coming towards Pando. We would be able to anticipate that. And then with the bats, it'll tell us about the insects. The birds will tell us about the insects. And of course, you know, trail cams are great, but you know, a picture tells 1,000 words. But those bioacoustic studies can tell us about behavior that you don't get from a cam. You may hear two elk fighting. You may hear a bobcat or a mountain lion killing a deer. And so it's one more way that we can kind of expand the picture of what we understand about Pando. And so we're excited to get those online. You know, we literally just published the end of the year review. And for your listeners, I want to say, I'm sorry if I'm going on long, but we literally just published it Saturday. We're really excited about adding all of this different monitoring capacity. That's going to help us educate the public, help people understand all the work that we need to do, and then set that in motion in a long-term way.
Predation of animals and insects. Have you found any evidence of animal DNA in the tree? Like our forests here, because of the salmon run and the predation of animals,
Yeah.
the nutrients of
Yeah.
of that is in our forest. It's actually part this. Without the salmon, we wouldn't have the forest.
Yeah. A
So
salmon in the forest. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I totally understand that question. So your question is about, have we found like animal predator DNA, anything like that, kind of like in the roots of the tree, or has it integrated the way that we see where we have salmon runs and things like that you see in the Pacific Northwest, Alaska, British Columbia,
yeah.
you know, Oregon, Washington. there hasn't been any studies like that to date with Pando. What we have found is we found carcasses, we found scat. For those that are not hip, scat is animal poo. And using that animal poo, it is possible to look at their diet. Bears come out of hibernation. There is a bear family that lives in Pando's home range, like there in its homeland. Bears can cover an area about 10 to 40 square miles. So we'd be surprised if we see another bear family take up and stay there.
Yeah.
But all the animals can smell that freshwater lake. They're all coming in and out. But there is a regular bear family there. We found bobcat sign. We found mountain lion sign, markings, scratch marks, things like that. But to date, nobody's done the kind of DNA studies that we see with salmon. But I think it would be really exciting if we did, because the implication there is not just that that has been integrated in the tree in a certain way, the way we see with the conifer and the arboreal lands, as we go further and further north in North America. But also it would be exciting because it could possibly tell us something about the age of that particular part of the root system. We could absolutely make some relationships between the geologic structure of where that sample was collected, looking at the age of the root based on what we understand about the morphology, and then potentially correlate that if there were bone or other things that were found near that area. In addition to DNA, it would kind of give us a snapshot of that area. So nobody has done that. It would be exciting. Another really exciting movement in geology is that they could take rocks and they can look for certain kind of interstellar events, and it produces a certain crystal in the rock, and you can use that to kind of age the soil in a different way. And while that wouldn't necessarily give us a definite age for Pando, it would give us an age range, which is right now we're doing that with fire history in the tree. But it doesn't guarantee that was necessarily Pando itself. But obviously, as big as it is, what are the chances it was something else? And so it would be exciting to see that. But no, we don't have any research like that. So if you know anybody, send them our way. That'd be great.
I'll do some looking around and possibly talk to Lands and Forest here to get in contact with the scientists who are studying the salmon runs. You have a documentary coming out soon, right?
We started in part through a project. Kind of what got the ball rolling was the idea that Pando had never been documented. And so yes, we have a couple of projects in addition to our research data, which we publish out every year. The first project is a Pando photographic survey, and two of the projects are about that. The Pando photographic survey, we didn't have a record of the Pando tree, and satellites can't penetrate Pando's canopy. We never had a ground level record of the tree. And so I developed some methods and prototypes in 2019. And then we went to independent scientists that had studied Pando to get maps and things like that. And then we worked with scientists that work at local colleges there around Pando's homeland. And what we did is, working with Ryan Thalman, he was our chief scientist on the Pando photographic survey. We mapped the tree, 1 point every 7 meters in the tree in every direction. And then we went out to every one of those points. We sent out crews, we trained them up to photograph that point at the ground level to document that area of the tree. And so that'll allow, where Pando lives is really hard to get to. It's really expensive to do research on Pando. It's in a really remote area. And so it gives scientists and land managers a way to study the tree from anywhere in the world year round, because Pando is pretty hectic in winter. So the Pando photographic survey, so far, we've published 60 acres of Pando's landmass to date. Your listeners can go to friendsofpando.org/explore Pando, and they can go visit all these different sections of the tree, and they can explore that part of the tree. That project produced the first public plot map of Pando, and that project gives us a way. We could go back. Every one of those points has a unique name. We could go back to that point and we could re-photograph that point and see how the tree has changed over time. So with that, we created a making of documentary, because nobody's ever tried to document a landscape on this scale using these methods. And this would also figure as the largest image of a tree ever gathered. We did a making of documentary about the effort, how we did this, all the people that were involved. We worked with natural resource students, volunteers from all over the US. We have scientists and computer scientists working with us on models and things like that, using the data that we collected. And so the making of the Pando Photographic Survey is a 12-minute short subject documentary that we'll be releasing on our YouTube channel here very shortly. And it just tells the story of that project, the work that we did. You get to meet people who took part in the project, surveyors, photographers, volunteers, and we talk about the challenges. We talk about the successes and failures as we worked along, and why this record is important. Because, you know, if you take the devil's bet and you say Pando's dying, it's going away, we'll have a record of this tree. And if we find anything like it in the future, that will give us insights to take care of the tree. But if you think about really taking care of the tree long-term as we do, becoming Pando's constant gardeners, this record, which was gathered and developed rigorously, can be replicated. You could go back and replicate 3 shots or 3,000 shots to answer questions. And we can use things like artificial intelligence. We can use things like machine imaging algorithms to look at the data set and process it. We'll have this record to monitor what work we're doing and how successful that is over time. And previous to the Pando Photographic Survey, that was very painstaking work. You have to go out into the tree and you got to do all these counts and things. And even still, you're relying on statistics at a certain level. Now you could literally just go to that section, that exact point in the tree, and study it. And so the making of the Pando Photographic Survey will be out soon. And, you know, folks can go to that YouTube channel page, they can subscribe, and they'll be able to watch the whole feature-length film for free. The other thing that we've done, and this is a little bit dated, but it was in the news last year, we have an artist in residency program, and an artist named Jeff Rice. He's a sound conservationist and artist. He was an artist in residence out in Pando in 2022. And working with Jeff, I worked with Jeff to identify sites and soundscapes we were looking for. And so Jeff has recorded those sounds. He's written essays about it. People can visit Friends of Pando's artist in residency page and hear all these recordings. And for the first time, we have an idea of what the subterranean soundscape of Pando is. It's almost like we have the whale song for Pando, you know, like for the first time, we can hear water moving through the tree's root systems, and we can hear insects and animals at the subterranean level. And of course, he recorded things above ground too. And right now, Jeff, for those listeners in Victoria or Vancouver, British Columbia, Jeff has a show at Jack Straw Gallery in Seattle, and they can go and experience the soundscape of Pando kind of immersively and learn about the tree right here in the Pacific Northwest. So we're really excited. That show just opened Friday. You know, Jeff is an artist and a conservationist both, but he's been an amazing champion using his art and craft to help people understand and think about the tree in new ways. And indeed, that's one of our aspirations with the Artist in Residence program. And so there's that project, and it's cool to see the Artist in Residence program go right to gallery, you know, right off the bat, to have the artists that we're supporting who want to think about Pando. We haven't had a record of what it means to live in a world where Pando is possible. It wasn't known to Indigenous people. More than likely, we've scoured the accounts. It doesn't seem that anybody knew of Pando in the distinct sense that we do. So to see the artists that are out there documenting what it means and what it means to live in a world from a human point of view where Pando is possible is really exciting. The other project that we have is the Living Map Project. And so to date, all of the maps and all of the work to take care of Pando, nobody had ever really organized the history of land management in Pando, and nobody had really organized all the data that we do have on Pando. And so the Pando Living Map Project was launched in 2022. And what that is it's literally a mapping project. Esri, who has a tool called ArcGIS Online, we're a nonprofit, and they sponsored our work to be able to create these interactive maps of Pando. And that Pando Living Map project, it's designed in the way that it sounds. It's going to be a living record of everything that we know about Pando. And so all the boundary maps, which is the genetic boundaries of the tree, all the fence systems that are used to protect the tree, all the predator and wildlife observations that we make, all the soil study data, all the bioacoustic data. This past year, we also undertook the first low elevation LiDAR studies of the tree. And interestingly, Pando's landmass is not complete in the US Geologic Society mapping system, nor is it complete in the state of Utah's geologic mapping system in terms of topography. And so we undertook, working with Snow College and Ryan Tallman, who was also the chief scientist on the Pando Photographic Survey, we undertook work to create a 1 meter resolution topographic map of Pando that is also included as part of the Pando Living Map project. So we have Pando's boundaries, we have the protective sense of boundaries, fences boundaries, we have the topographic maps, all the wildlife studies, all the fence repair and fortification studies, all the historic maps of the tree, all the contemporary maps of the tree, and we'll build on that year over year. All of our monitoring data, we're open science, so we open source that. Anybody can download that data, they can go replicate the results, they can integrate it into their research projects. And indeed, we've already had a couple of scientists just since December reach out to us and say, hey, can we get these shape files? And indeed, we keep all of that in the Science of Pando page. You can download all these shape files and data sets. They're freely available. We just asked folks that they would cite Friends of Pando. So we're really excited about the Pando Living Map project because for most folks, Pando's just a tree. Why do we care so much about the tree? It's a remarkable tree. But giving the public a way to understand that Pando is a living dynamic, that it's always undergoing change, and that we're doing work in the tree is really important, because the better we can do to educate the general public about the work that needs to be done, we think we'll get better outcomes. People will understand, for example, if the federal government in the US wanted to protect Pando, they have these resources to go, well, what does protection mean? Why does a tree need protection? Well, here's why. Look at the data on fencing. Look at the data on wildlife. You can draw relationships amongst these data sets. And this is like a lot of other things, because Pando is a recent discovery, these things have never been available to help people understand and take care of the tree. So we're really excited about that project too. And again, you can get that, go to Friends of Pando's website, go to the Living Map project page, freely available. And then from there, you can go to the Science of Pando page on Friends of Pando and download the basic, download the raw data sets and rebuild that and put it together any way that's useful for your research or questions.
The whole LiDAR angle of mapping. With an iPhone 12, you can add an app to it and get a 3D image of an area. So the hikers that go through, you could suggest to them that, and then you could get a LiDAR mapping of the area that they were in that time period, and have timestamps that you can then go to the scientists and say, this is what happened at this time here. And that's very exciting.
You're singing our song. That is called, and this is why the Pando Photographic Survey, having that is really important, because anybody could go to any point in the tree, they can download that data set and they could take a picture with their phone or do that LiDAR like you're talking about with the phone. I'm not an iPhone user, but I certainly understand the principle. So in fact, one of our scientists, he's an imaging scientist, his name's Joseph Farrar. One of the things we're talking about for hikers is setting up these little rephotography stations. And indeed, they can do exactly what you're talking about. Take that picture. When they get back into cell phone range, they can email it to us. We've seen these projects be successful, for example, at Kenai Fjords National Park in Alaska, where you literally kind of created a citizen scientist program to see how the glacier changes over time. So we absolutely want to do that. And we're thrilled, when we started work, we're thrilled by the technological opportunities before us. When we started with the Pando Photographic Survey, I mean, even some of the 360 camera technology was still pretty immature. And so we're thrilled by the idea that we can engage people who visit Pando to collect data and become part of the story of how do we understand how can we understand change in the tree over time, and engaging people that they have a role to play. So we're really excited about those types of technological updates and opportunities. And indeed, we want to set up some stations just like that. We would love to do that with soil, water, rephotography, how the land physically, taking images of how the tree changes over time. And then, of course, we'll keep up the canopy studies. That one requires a little bit more finesse, but we're excited about those things. We think we're in a new generation of stewardship, and where we can open source and we can open up opportunities, for people just using what they have in their back pocket, these little computers in our back pocket.
I just had another thought. This is random off the cuff. I'm looking at doing a drone course down the road. And for taking images of the canopy, there is
Yeah.
drone adapted 3D or 360 cameras and LiDAR cameras that you can map out the canopy in a better way than what you would get from doing flights over with um I forget the name of the plane. It's a research plane. Costs
Yeah.
costs
Mhm.
thousands and thousands of dollars to do that, but a drone
Yep.
it is less than $100. So right there.
Yep. Uh, our Ryan Tallman, he was a chief scientist on the Pando Photographic Survey, but he does a lot of this low elevation lidar. And indeed, we're still processing the data. You would imagine it's a ginormous data set, but the canopy studies he did last year were with lidar, like what you're talking about, from a drone. And so we have that. And then going back a couple of years, also working with Ryan, photogrammetry. And so you can like look at that image and take any point. You can tell the exact thing about that tree at that elevation point down to the tree level. Ryan is just an extraordinary talent with these types of technologies. And we're working on imaging the data that he's able to collect. So we're really excited about that. Processing that canopy data is a whole other can of worms, but having that level of detail is really important to understanding at the very small level. We have to think small and we have to think big with Pando. We need to think of it like a tree, and we need to think of it like a clone, both, right? And Ryan just does a really great job with that. And he brings out students from Snow College, Richfield, when he does that. And I'm really grateful that we met him, and he's done great work on it. We have opportunities to kind of build these data sets out over time. So yeah, I'm excited about those possibilities too, because the Forest Service, they do what they can, and but they're not always the most technologically advantaged, right? Those things are expensive. It takes really professional, different kinds of expertise to develop these kinds of things. And the history of Pando in some ways has involved risk and innovations. It was the largest tree, right? When it was first discovered, like the largest aspen clone, it's the largest tree in the world by weight and land mass. And we've been really excited and grateful to the Forest Service that they've been willing to let us try some new things that, are maybe more advanced than what they're used to doing. And indeed, every time we do it, it opens up the picture more and more. So we just want to tilt our hats towards the Forest Service, our partners there, for the fact that Pando's care has always involved risk and innovation, and they've been willing to keep an open mind about that as we think about new ways of thinking of the tree, sound and laser lidar canopy studies and water studies and things like that. It's a really exciting time, and it's also still early in Pando's life as we've understood it as part of the world, right? It's a time of discovery in that way. And so I just want to give a nod to them as well.
The Forestry Service, particularly in the States, I've always had a good interaction with them, and they're always a font of knowledge. Uh, certain ones embrace technology, and they give they're a sounding board for projects like your own to protect Pando and other forests that really need protection and study. That um, sorry, I'm going on and on here.
I've been going on and on quite a bit myself, so I appreciate everything that you're saying, and I just go back to how Wade Davis's work and how that inspired me, and how I think it's important for folks to understand that Pando is fully in our care now. It's always been the case that Pando has been at some level or another interacting with humans or the result of human choices. And so with the Pando tree, we have a direct opportunity to physically engage with this natural subject that's alive and been alive a long time. It has that sort of, you talked about plants and how long they've been around, you know, um, you're talking about life forms that have learned to eat the most abundant energy source in the universe, sunlight, starlight.
Yeah,
And so I always keep that in mind, along with, what I was sharing with you earlier, how Wade Davis has inspired me. And, I think the idea that we have these life forms that have been around for 300 million years. Trees, the first trees appear in the record around, we have ginkgo going back at least 300 million years in the fossil record today. And then the kind of rudiments of plants, which of course include trees, going back, as you were saying, 500 million years, a billion years. Um, they produce oxygen and they learn to eat starlight. Can you think of anything that is smarter or savvier? These modular bodies and branches and root systems and everything that's smarter or savvier in human terms anyway than life forms that have been evolving on the earth for that long and learned to eat starlight. I mean, that's just incredible to me. Just incredible that, and it's really easy to lose sight of that. Human lifetimes are really small.
yep.
So I appreciate what you're saying there.
Can you tell us a little bit about Pando Coffee and where people can buy it and what the reasoning behind it is?
Yeah, so Pando Coffee is a fourth generation, all women operated business out of Salt Lake City. And they actually approached us about opportunities. They have their custom roaster, coffee roaster, and the brand is Pando Coffee. And they took that name from the Pando tree. And they do a lot of work around sustainability. And they reached out to us to say, hey, we would like to support the work of Friends of Pando. And so last year we worked together to develop a sponsorship. And so Pando Coffee has pledged to sponsor the Pando Ambassador Program. The Pando Ambassador Program is a program where folks go out and collect all the monitoring data, working with Forest Service, working with our other volunteers, staff, students, things like that. And so they'll sponsor that program this year, creating a job for a local natural resources student to work and take care of Pando, right? They have, I think it's 6 different brands. I like their coffee. I like their Honduras blend myself. And basically you can go to Pando Coffee. You can just Google Pando Coffee. You'll find them. And we help them with some information about the Pando tree, but they're donating a portion of each sale of Pando Coffee to the work that Friends of Pando is doing. In addition to that, they're sponsoring the Pando Ambassador Program to pay for that natural resources student to work in the tree in 2024. And this is huge for us. We're a small nonprofit. We're all volunteer based. So to have a sponsor like this is a really big deal for us. It's our first sponsorship. We're really excited that they're based in Utah. It just so happens that deer hate coffee grounds. So maybe sometime in the future, we might be able to collect the coffee grounds to ward deer away from Pando in addition to those fences. But what's really exciting about it too is really we're getting to work with a regional business. We're getting to work with a business that's ran by Lady Jordan Gardner, her parents have owned this beverage company. They're now 3-4 generations, and she's coming into the leadership role. And then she reached out to us. She's super cool, very rock and roll, great coffee, great concept, good people, and they want to do things in the Utah community. And so they offered to sponsor any of your listeners. If what they pledge to do is if somebody buys a bag of coffee, they donate a portion of the sales for the Pando Ambassador Program. And I'm kind of reiterating this. They'll donate a portion of sales to support the Pando Ambassador Program in 2024. And then when the folks buy a bag of coffee, they can round up, and that extra change will just go to Friends of Pando for our day-to-day operations.
Excellent. Is there anything else you'd like to add that we haven't touched on?
I think we've covered it pretty well. You had a question about the artist in residency. And indeed, we do. I just want to touch on that briefly, if that's okay.
Okay.
So Friends of Pando has a program, the Pando Artist in Residency Program. And what that is that each year, today we don't have, Pando was only discovered in 76, confirmed in 2008. Today, we don't really have a lot of documents or a record of what it means to live in a world where Pando is possible. And so through the Friends of Pando Artist in Residency Program, we invite oral historians, visual artists, sculptors, multimedia artists of all kinds to come out to Pando and create original works about the tree or their experiences of the tree or their concerns or questions about the tree. Each year we pick a local artist, a regional artist, meaning kind of like the American Southwest, and then a national or internationally recognized artist. And this program, we do accept, we're open to applications. Folks can go to the Artist in Residency page and just introduce themselves and tell us a little bit more about their work and their vision, and we'll get back with them. And unlike a lot of Artist in Residency programs, this is a paying residency. We give folks a small stipend. They can not stay in the tree, but they can stay in Pando's homeland, document the work, and then we'll help them with, gallery shows and things like that, help them to get the word out, just like we have with Jeff Rice, whose works here in Seattle. If folks want to come see that. And so it's open. It's a paying artist in residency program. And we're really excited this year about looking at artists that are doing more material culture, fabric, pottery, jewelry making, things like this, where in the past we've had visual artists, plein air style artists, sound artists, photographers, multimedia artists. This year, we're really excited about hearing more about different mediums. We have a sculptor that's one of our residents right now. Her name's Emily Laughlin. She's doing great work around using maps and network models to kind of describe the tree in some new ways. And so we welcome folks to visit the Artist in Residence page if they have ideas about doing a residency in Pando, what inspires them, and how they might like to help tell the story of what it means to live in a world where Pando is possible.
That's great. And the fact that it's a paid residency, it gives these artists a chance to make some money, but also be able to produce a better quality output of material, which is perfect for what you're trying to do.
Indeed, and not only that, everybody that does the residency, we ask for a series of works. You can't just go to Pando and take one picture and leave. We ask for a series of works, and then all the artists that are accepted in the program, we ask them for at least a 750-word essay about their experience with the tree and what it meant for them to create the work and how the work reflects a relationship between them and the tree. And so then we publish that on our website. And our long-term vision for this, we have art shows and get-togethers out in Pando's homeland. So all the artists in residency that we've had already have already been in one of those art shows. So we'll have art shows again in the future. I think this year we're just going to have some film premieres out there in Pando's homeland. But then we have this concept for the Pando archive, and the artist work's going into a permanent archive of artistic creative representations of the tree over time that the Forest Service or federal agencies or state agencies can use to help people, the general public, understand how people are thinking about what it means to live in a world where Pando is possible. We haven't launched that particular archive yet. Like, we've done the background work. We're in our third year with the artists in residency, but their works would become part of a permanent archive of work about Pando. So we're excited about that aspect too.
That's excellent. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for coming on with me. This has been a great journey. I've loved every minute of it.
Well, thank you so much, Alan. Thank you to you and your staff and your crew for making time to be with us. We always find that when we do these things, good things happen. So we appreciate you having us and taking the time and sending the questions over and helping us understand everything y'all are doing. We just really appreciate the opportunity and encourage folks to visit friendsofpando.org to learn more about the tree and the work we're doing. And of course, they can find us on Facebook, Friends of Pando, Twitter as well. And definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to see more content to better understand the tree, our film work, all of that. So, Pando is, about connecting. And every time we do one of these things, we see that folks connect and bring ideas in new and different ways. So we're always excited about that. Thank you for your time and thank you for having us.
I want to thank Lance for coming on with us. The Friends of Pando is a great project with many working parts. Please check out their work at thefriendsofpando.org. I'm including links to their YouTube channel, and we support their work through our own archive, www.parasortium.com. Please like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on.